Good morning, Predicted Trades family. Hope everybody's doing well today. Let's start off with a little review of yesterday. We opened right around that 42.60 on ES. We had our trend line from the overnight, Sunday night. We quickly took out that trend line and popped up past our next key level, stalling out around that 30-minute squeeze top. Hourly squeeze top. We caught a little bit of the put action back to VWAP, but then as it held VWAP, we locked up our puts and started loading long. Playing, I think, the 42.85s all the way up to 4300s on SPX. We held VWAP, popped right back up to 4300, our next key level. And we basically just hung out there for the whole afternoon, never really dropping below that 42.90. Overnight, pretty much stayed in the same area. And now we have our 30-minute and 1-hour squeezes. As we can tell from our watch list over here. So for today, well, actually, before we dig into what we could have for today, let's take a quick look at the economic calendar. Because tomorrow is our FOMC. So we have a big economic release there. We'll find out if exactly how Feds are going to raise the rates, and if that's going to be a shock to the market or if it's already priced in. We also have our jobless claims, manufacturing data on Thursday, and Friday's kind of uneventful, except it is an OPEX Friday. Monthly option expiration this Friday. We could take a quick look into next week just to see. Not a ton of economic data next week. We'll get a bunch on Friday. So, with FOMC tomorrow, we could get a number of scenarios. We could just stay in this range, kind of bouncing between key levels leading into FOMC. We did get our continuation yesterday. If we look at the 4-hour, we ran into the 8MA and pushed off of it. We could get continuation again today. To talk about that, I'm going to jump to a 4-hour time frame. There we go. Because what is key is if you connect the highs from this year, we are slowly approaching that. That pink line is right up here, just past our next zone. And in the middle of that zone is the daily 200. ES has not yet gotten to the daily 200, while some indices have. And we still need to test our major trend line from the highs of this year, which is just above that. So if we are going to get continuation today and push off of 4,300, get above it, retest it, and then push off of it, the goal is this zone up above near 4320, sorry. Our daily 200 is 43.23, right in the middle of that zone. And if we can just reach a little past that zone to about 43.35, sheesh, we'll be tapping that trend line from the highs of this year. So we could get continuation today, run in and test all of these things before our FOMC tomorrow. Real quick, I do want to look at each index on the 4 hour. So as you can see in Q, we have already taken out our trend line from highs, but our 200 still sits up above. So we took out that trend line from those highs, last week pretty much. With the CPI breakout, we got out of that trend line. That daily 200 sits just outside our third Keltner and up in between some key levels, and pretty much right at that psych 14,000. So if we are going to get to the daily 200 on all the indices, we need to see in Q get up to that 14,000. And within a day or so, it will land pretty much right at 14,000. So that is our upside target for continuation. But with FOMC tomorrow, anything's possible. We could just chop today and tomorrow, kind of leading into that. But we can get our continuation as well. If we start to slip in the market, I'm expecting us to hold up key levels. You can see this 13,575. That was a recent high that we kept running into and then broke out. So if we do start to slip, sort of looking for that to hold. That 575, also have that key level of 531 right underneath it. I want to take a quick look at the ready. So if you connect trend lines from highs on the ready, we've already broken through that. And she's already arrived at the daily 200. Now above it, so it should be support. And as you can see, that same kind of high that we ran into and then finally broke out right at 2,000 is now where that daily 200 sits. So if we do start to slip a little, looking for that to hold up, if that gives out, back to the daily 8 for a test. Upside target for now, just 2050 and getting above that, on our way to 2100. And then YM. Come on, there we go. So for YM, connecting the trend line from highs, we started to break through that already. I do have another trend line from some other highs that started before this year's high. And as you can see, it's a little bit not as extreme, a little more gradual, and we are starting to arrive at that. So we got through trend line from highs of this year, but I have another trend line from major highs that still sits above. So we are somewhat trapped in between those trend lines. And on YM, we also got above that daily 200. So if we can hold and get continuation, looking to get through this trend line over 34,000 and keep trucking. But if we start to come back, there's that same high as we saw in the other indices, right at around 625. And just below that, we've got a key level at that 520 and the daily 8 at that 394, should we start to roll back. Let's just drop on down to our normal time frames. Just to reiterate that, if we can start to push over 4,300, start to fire this 30-minute 1-hour squeeze to the upside, that upside target is this zone above, daily 200, and trend line from highs. If we start to slip out of this range, It's basically back to our zone below that 4260. Should that start to give out, we have our daily 8 right back down here at 4220. One thing to keep in mind, POC still sits back at 4120. Way below. And now our daily 21 has caught up to that. Basically that means that last week so much volume was traded around 4120, sorry. And this push up that we have had is on a little less volume. So as we approach major trend lines, major moving averages above, the volume's going to get less and less, and then it'll pour back in. So just something to note is to keep an eye on where POC is. The daily 21 has now caught up to POC. In fact, by tomorrow it'll be caught up to that 4136.5. So that we have some overall targets if we start to see some major moves down off of FOMC, some profit taking and whatnot. We could get that reset to the daily mean, right back to these key levels to start the journey up again. In Q, left its POC down at 290. And so basically where these lows sat that bounced us up. The daily 21 is still way below that, but the daily 21 is now above 13,000 key level, and these lows that sent us higher. Upside targets on NQ. If we can keep going, get continuation today. It's a fight to get from the 13,700 up to 14,000, right? We could get there in a day on ATR. Might be a 2-day journey if we're going to see continuation. First targets are, around that 830, 844. Third Keltner, that 974, 14,000, and that daily 200. If we start to roll back, looking for that 531 to hold. And if that starts to give out, then likely back to the daily 8. Ready. Thank you for the quick load. Nope, still waiting on prices. Come on, ready. If ready can continue more, looking for that 2050, 2100. If we start to roll back, lose this daily 200, we could vacuum down to that daily 8 pretty quick. Should that give out, the 21 is now above 1900, and POC and the daily 21 are right on top of each other. So two key magnets should we start to roll over or have a negative reaction for FOMC. YM. Pretty simple on YM. Upside target first is that 34,000 psych level. That third Keltner above. And the next stop probably about that 250. Should we start to roll back? Looking for this daily Keltner to hold, which aligns with those highs from last Thursday at around 600. Should that start to give out, probably back to the daily 8. And also on YM, POC and the daily 21 are, 10 points off from each other. So two key targets together below. If we start to roll, we could get that full reversion to the mean and POC with plenty of time left in the month to get right back up to highs. Apple held our zone yesterday very nicely, kept trying to push. Key target above that 175. So if we can get continuation today, take out yesterday's high, looking to get to that 175. We are above third Keltner, always something to keep an eye on, and now that third Keltner is aligned with the top of this zone. So should we start to lose third Keltner and this zone, we can get back to that daily 8, that second Keltner down below. And let's see, POC's around 165 where the first Keltner is, with the daily 21 now up above 160. That daily 200 also at 160. So just some key targets below if we start to see a rollover. But holding above this zone, still bullish and can push higher. AMD didn't really do much yesterday. In fact, yeah. Kind of just held above 100, though. So it's been defending 100 and trying to stay above it. If we can start to break out of these squeeze tops, get through yesterday's high and last week's high, around that 102.25. The goal is to get back to that 104.5, 105. We've got our second Keltner there on the way, and ultimately that third Keltner up at 107.5. If we start to roll back, actually so much volume has exchanged here that POC has now established itself at 100. But we do have that daily 21 back at 95, almost caught up to our 96 key level if we start to roll back. But now our daily 8 is caught up to the top of this zone, daily 15 going to catch up to the bottom. So even a reversion just to this zone tags the daily 8 and 15 if we start to roll back. Oh my, Amazon. Looking very strong this morning. Are we still printing up there? Yeah, okay. So Amazon already through yesterday's highs. Did a great job of staying above 140. Didn't even get there yesterday. Held 141.5, so very bullish. I know a number of folks in the room were hitting those 145s yesterday in the morning. And I think a couple people even picked them up on this dip at close. Now we're going to be gapping up above yesterday's high. So looking good. Going to be opening very close to that 145. We have the daily 200 right there up on the top of this squeeze. And if we can get going past that, we have that third Keltner up at 147.5, 148. And that psych level of 150. If we start to reject the daily 200 and come back, basically looking for us to stay in this range. We have POC at 142.7 now. If we start to lose that, we can start to fire this 1 hour, 30-minute squeeze down into a 2 hour where that daily 8 is and that key 140. Should we start to lose that, next Keltner and moving average at 135, 137. BA continuing to remain strong. we've got POC back at 164, pretty much where that daily 15 is, and our key levels. We do have a 4-hour squeeze down at 166. Looking for us to hold 170 this morning and push off of that through yesterday's high to get to this daily squeeze top around 174. If we start to lose 170, we could roll back to that 168 where the daily 8 will be stepping up. And if we give that out, then down to the 4-hour at 166. Cat. 195 has established POC at 196. Very strong yesterday, holding that 193. We do have a daily squeeze up above at that second Keltner. Our third Keltner up above 200. So for today, let's see if we can stay above 195, start to push our way into that daily squeeze top, and get to that psych level of 200. If we can't hold 195, definitely want to hold this 193.83, but should that start to give out, back to our key level, and where all of our daily moving averages are stacked. But we do have pocket 196, so we could continue to cling up here and try to push higher. Google was decently strong yesterday, held at 120.5, squeezed bottoms, made its way up to 122.3. I know some folks in the room hit those 122s, made a little bit. Let's see if we can continue, get through yesterday's high. We've got that second Keltner pretty much at 123. That third Keltner up at 126, outside of this big old 2-day squeeze. So let's see if we can start to push into that. We do have POC back at 118, in between the daily 8 and the daily 15 and 21. So those are the targets to the downside if we start to roll and lose 120.5. GS still high flying, almost got up to 360. It's above that third Keltner, so let's see if that third Keltner can provide support at around 354. 354, 355. Let's see if that can provide support, get us up through yesterday's high to that 360. But if we start to roll back and lose that third Keltner, we could easily roll back to this 350 at the bottom of this 2-hour squeeze. Come on. If we start to lose 350, back to the daily 200 and daily 8 at 344. We do have POC down at 334, where the daily 21 is now going to catch up to. So lots of POCs and 21s overlapping as we are up at third Keltners. Something to keep an eye on. JPM finally looking strong. Had 1, 2 decently strong days pushing higher. We are at the top of this 2-day squeeze, which can be a good spot to turn around. Let's see, holding pretty decently near the highs. See if we can take out yesterday's high, get up to that third Keltner. And what looks like potentially an old POC at 125.36 for upside targets. Should we start to roll back and start to give out 121, 120.5, likely coming back to that daily 8 and that first Keltner. And if that gives out, we have all of the moving averages sitting down at 116. We also have POC at 115.4. So POC sits just below all of the 21, 50, and 15 for downside target should the market starts to roll. Meta. We've got a daily squeeze, 2-day squeeze, every time frame squeeze pretty much. It is saying that that daily is starting to fire to the upside, but we still have our 2-day holding us back. Let's see. If Meta can start to break above 182 and take out that 183 high, the goal is to get to that next Keltner and daily squeeze top at 185.5, 186. Should we start to roll back and give out 180, 178, likely coming down to this 4-hour, I'm guessing, squeeze bottom around 176 where the daily 8's catching up to. And should that give out back to the 21 around 170, we do have pocket 168 and some change. So same scenario, all those magnets below if we start to roll. Microsoft made it above 290. Pretty strong yesterday, slapped 290, came up to 294. Almost tagging that daily 200. See if we can stay above that pre-market low around 292. And push through yesterday's high in that daily 200 to get to that third Keltner at 297 and that psych level of 300. Should we start to give out 292, we could roll back to 290. And if that gives out, likely back to the daily 8, which is going to be stepping up near 288. We do have the daily 21 down near 278 and POC's around 282. So some targets to watch if we start to roll over and lose 290. Netflix. All the way back up at 250. Let's see if pre-market lows, yesterday's lows squeeze bottom can hold us up around 246, 247. Start to push us back through 250, through yesterday's high, and a bid to get to that third Keltner around 254. If we start to lose 245, we could roll back to around that 242, 240, where the daily 8's going to be stepping up near. Should that start to give out, we do have POC in the daily 21 right back at about 226. For targets to the downside, should the whole market start to roll. NVIDIA. NVIDIA's arrived back at where it was before that pre-earnings release. She sold right down to the daily 50 and then right back up to where she tanked from, right? Basically filling that reaction gap down. So let's see if this 189 can continue to provide support to get us through this 190 level that we sold off from. And a bid to get back to that 193. And ultimately that second Keltner up at the top of this daily squeeze at around 195, 196. Should we start to lose about 188, we could roll back to that daily 8, daily 15, which will be stepping up, around 183. Should that start to give out, we've got the daily 21, which will be stepping up to about 180. And let's see, we did establish POC around 188, so we did pull POC up near our current price action. So if we start to give out that 188, that POC level, 188.5, we could start to see that reversion to the daily 8, 15, that 21's at 178, about to step up to 180. So definitely looking for all those to hold on a rollover. QQQ. On QQQ we have POC back at 323 and some change. So basically right back near these lows from Thursday. Let's see, decently strong yesterday. Got up to 333. Let's see if squeeze bottoms can hold us around 331.5. Get us through yesterday's high and a bid to get up to that 335.7 or 336 where the third Keltner is stepping up. And that 340 psych level. But should we start to give out, lose 330, likely coming back to the daily 8 and POC, which basically POC sits between this daily 8 and this daily Keltner. And that daily 21 will likely be stepping up right into our key zone here that we settled at before CPI. Roku, not a ton of interest. Not really doing anything, clinging to these daily moving averages. If it can break above 186, that daily 50, in a bid to get back to that recent high, 89.5, 90, where that first Keltner up sits. And, you know, we've got a squeeze top up here. That would be the ultimate target to get back to, that psych level of 100. But definitely not trying to move up too strongly with the market. Roku's a little broken, so I'd leave it alone for now. But once it breaks above that 86, it can start to get interesting. Shop had that decent run last week, up to 45, coming back to settle at 40. And at the daily 8, let's see if it can push off of 40 again. In a bid to get back to that high in these squeeze tops, that second Keltner. But if we can't hold 40 and start to give out 39, got that daily 21 back at 38. So we could slip down into the squeeze bottom, tag the daily 21 and 15 to find the buyers that could get us higher. Snow. They report same day as NVIDIA next week. Looks like they got an upgrade this morning on Snow to 210. Let's see if we can hold these squeeze bottoms around 163, 164. She's gapping down. Not loving this setup, but it could be as long as we can hold that 163.5, 164, we could push back to fill this gap and try to continue up to the squeeze top from 175 to 179. That upgrade just might help her fill that gap and try to push out of this consolidation. But we've also gapping down, and we have that daily 21 below. POC around 160 below as well. So she could take a dip to POC the daily 21 before heading higher. Not loving the setup though. You know, when market's being strong, if an individual name is a little weak, might not be time to play it. Let's see, SPX, you know, filled its gap down, obviously. SPX has the daily 21 up at 43.27. And we've got this third Keltner which will be stepping up near 4,300 today. So with the gap up, gap down. Let's see if we can hold this 42.80, this high that we closed at. If we can hold that, it's a bid to get back through that 4,300 to that daily 200 up above at 43.27, which would also get ES to its daily 200. If we start to give out that 42.80, looking for that 42.60 to hold. And should that start to give out, then we're probably coming back to this gap fill zone to test. That daily 8 likely going to be stepping up to the top of this gap fill zone. And our daily 21 way down at 4,100, which we do have some gaps to get through to get back there. That daily 21 also stepping up to these smaller gaps that we held in the past. So all things to keep an eye on to the downside if we start to roll. SPY. Just looking over the chat. Morning D Force, morning Bob. So, on SPY. And we look at these beautiful key levels. So clean. We held that zone around 423.5. Pushed right up to that key level around 426 for some consolidation at VWAP. And then pushed up to that next level at 428.86. Let's see if our squeeze bottoms can hold us. See if we take a quick dip down to that 426 before heading back up. If we can get through that 429, 429.5, yesterday's high, we can try to get to that 430. Ultimately, to get up to this 431.5 that the daily 200 will be overlapping. So key target above with the daily 200 if we can see continuation and take out yesterday's high. We do have POC, wow, on SPY. POC is way back at 414. 414, a very big key level. As long as we are above that, I'm still, going to be looking bullish. Obviously, we're way above it right now. But, we could tag that daily 200, maybe even today. We could see what the reaction is to FOMC. Frankly, we've seen instances where FOMC numbers are not that bad, but they use it as a reason to react and take profit. So we could see that we run into this daily 200. We have our FOMC. They have their crazy reactions like they do. And we take a dip back down to POCs and 21s and then come right back up. Just a scenario that could happen, that's why I talk about it. But let's see, we are pinned between these two key levels. As long as we can stay above that 426 and bounce, we can continue through 428 to get to 431.5. We start to give out that 426, likely coming back to our zone, and our daily 8 back at 420. And should get that give out, 414 is going to become important. Square, haven't covered it in a number of days, and maybe we can see why here. We had a nice run into earnings. We had a wacky reaction that we ultimately came down on, then back up, then back down, then back up. It's basically in a big old wedge that's slowly coming to a point. But this is why I haven't really covered it. It's still stuck in this earnings range. So let's see, we've got POC basically right where we're at. So let's see if this 85.23 can continue to hold. Let's see if we can push off of POC, start to get through these squeezed tops. If we can, that should be a good amount of energy that's been stored up in this consolidation to push us up through 91, where that second Keltner sits, to get back to that 95, let's call it, where that third Keltner sits. But if market rolls over and we start to lose 85.23, likely coming back to 80, where the daily 21 sits, maybe even that 78. But squares just not been moving the best. So Tesla gapping up like Amazon while other names are gapping down. Tesla has the split coming next week. This is the last expiration, last full week expiration. Well, yeah, last expiration for the split. Next week the split's on a Thursday, which is strange to me, because then Friday it'll be opening, at a 3-to-1. So overall, Tesla did a great job of holding 900 yesterday. And on Friday, it held those squeeze bottoms and pushed off that 965, getting back to 900. Yesterday, it just kept going from 900 right on up. You can see how it reacts at these key levels, right? It ran into 918, and then it started to consolidate, but stayed above that daily 200 at 908. So still a very bullish setup. And it took right off through that 918 to that 930. Now trying to open above that 930. If it can hold 930 and push through yesterday's high around 940. It's a bid to get back to 950, 960. This key level around 964. And that third Keltner, which is up near 975. Also have our psych level of 1000. I know that some folks picked up those 1000 calls on Friday as they tapped their beast level around $1. And they made it to about $5 on Friday. They made it to, I want to say like 6 or 7 yesterday. So those 1000s have been a great play off of our beast zone, off of our buy zone. Let's see if she can keep on trucking. VIX. So yesterday VIX pretty quickly died and then just kept on going down. Did not quite engulf the gap though. So just for the hell of it, I am going to mark that. Because if we are going to see continuation to the upside today, we need to see VIX get back below 20, get through yesterday's low to fill this gap, and work its way back to 19. But if we are going to consolidate today, we're likely going to be pinned between this little gap and I'd say the daily 8 around 2050. So if today is a chop and consolidation kind of day going into FOMC tomorrow, probably going to stay in this range between 1975 and 2050. If we're going to get continuation to the upside on the market, going to need to take out this gap and go down to about 19 or further. If we are going to roll over today in the market and start to fire some of those squeezes to the downside, we'll likely see VIX get through that 2025 where that squeeze top sits, get through that daily 8 at 2050 and work its way up to 21. So that's what we have to look forward to for today. Hopefully this is helpful for everybody. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see everybody in chat today. Good luck. Remember, no beast, no feast.